What is up, you guys? Okay, so today is Monday, July 29th. And so I actually got a roommate yesterday. We've been friends since freshman year. She has 2 dogs. And so, speaking of, they're not supposed to be on the couch. One second. Yeah, she travels for work. And so I'm watching them this week. Oakley. Very different than normal. Okay. Anyways, so yeah, I'm watching them this week, and so if you see dogs in the background or hear barking, because this one likes to look out the window and bark at things in the backyard, so that's what that is. But anyways, so today I wanted to touch on being in a caloric deficit. I've been doing educational posts at the beginning of the week, full days of eating at the end of the week. I think that you guys are enjoying it. Let me know if you guys have any ideas for video topics. Other ideas just for videos in general, things like that. But one thing that I think a lot of people get confused on is a caloric deficit, because you hear all the time, like even in my last video, I said that my actual top tip for fat loss is to be in a caloric deficit. And I think that a lot of people like hear that and they're like, okay, cool, but how do I do that? So that's why I wanted to make this video. So basically I'm just gonna go over what is a caloric deficit and how do you actually get yourself in one to actually see progress. First, you kind of have to define what your maintenance level is, and really what your maintenance level is going to be your TDEE, or your total daily energy expenditure. So TDEE, I'm going to try to keep this quick and simple, to the point, so that this video isn't super long and you don't have too many things to kind of decipher with it. So I'm going to try to keep it super simple. But TDEE is basically made up of 4 things. The first is just going to be your BMR, RMR, whatever, resting metabolic rate, basal metabolic rate. That's what your body burns. Like if I were to just sit on my couch all day, not do anything, what would I burn just sitting there to live, to breathe, and yeah, just to live, but not actually doing anything. Second component, and that actually makes up the most of it. Second component is going to be the thermic effect of food. So this is going to be the calories that your body burns, digesting, absorbing, utilizing the foods that you eat. And this isn't going to contribute greatly, but it is going to contribute a small amount. The next is going to be your exercise activity thermogenesis. So the calories that you burn exercising, like your activity throughout the day. And this is going to differ a lot between people. Obviously, you could take a CrossFit athlete who may be burning 1,000 calories plus in a workout versus maybe a bodybuilder type workout person. Like I was going to say bodybuilder, but I don't actually compete, so I don't know if I can call myself that, but it's the kind of workouts I do, probably not going to burn as much. And some people, just don't work out. So that is going to differ a lot, obviously. And then lastly, your NEAT, or your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So things like being super what's it called? Like moving, twitching, just kind of tapping your foot whenever you're doing work, moving your hands like this when you're talking, even things like getting up to go to the bathroom, off of your couch, walking around in your kitchen, making dinner, all those things that aren't intentional exercise activity, but they are still activity that is going to contribute to your overall calorie burn for the day. So that is going to be your TDE, and whatever you are normally burning throughout the day is going to be your maintenance calories, because how the body works is if you are intaking the exact same, or not exact same, relatively same amount of calories as you are burning, then you're going to maintain that weight. If I will be using just 2,000 calories as an example here, because it's an easy number to calculate with, but say your TDE is 2,000 calories and you are consuming about 2,300 calories a day, well, that is going to be a caloric surplus for you. So you're going to have the opportunity, yes, to put on some body fat, but also to put on some good lean muscle tissue, things like that. But whenever we talk about a caloric deficit, if your maintenance calories for the time being, because maintenance does change as our body changes, but if your maintenance calories are 2,000 and you are wanting to be in a caloric deficit, all that means is that you need to be intaking less than 2,000 calories. And there will be So other ways to get into a caloric deficit other than just food, for example, cardio, moving around more, all that kind of stuff. But that's what I'm going to get into in this video, because it's not just about dropping your food, but you do want to be burning more calories than you're taking in. That's the way I meant to put it. So with that being said, how to determine your maintenance is going to kind of depend on the person. So if you have been tracking your food and you know your maintenance, don't go use a calculator, because if you already know your maintenance, obviously that is more accurate than a calculator. Calculators are just that, they're calculators. They don't know anything about your past diet history. They don't know anything about, some of them, I guess, account for muscle mass, but there's so many factors that they don't know about: your stress, any hormone imbalances. There's so many factors. So calculators, while they can be a good baseline, not the most accurate. So if you do know your current macros, that's honestly such a good thing. So say you're tracking your macros and whatever you're tracking on, your weight has kind of been the same, then that's probably about your maintenance. If you've been tracking and you've been gaining a little bit, you're probably a little bit above maintenance. For those of you guys who don't know what I would recommend one of two things. So I would either track your food into an app like MyFitnessPal or the First For My Transformation app, track for about a week and include weekends in there. Don't change anything that you're doing. I know it can be hard because you're like, oh, I'm tracking and now so I want to do good, but that won't give you an accurate representation. So once you get that, average it out, including the weekends, including drinks, things like that, average out those calories and see what they are. If you have been, like I said, maintaining and that's kind of your typical week, that's probably about your maintenance calories. If you've been putting on the pounds the past couple months, that's probably surplus calories, not your maintenance. If you've been losing weight, obviously that's probably a deficit. So that's one way to do it. And then you can also use a calculator, get that baseline number, eat it for a week, see what your body does. Did you gain weight? Did you lose weight? Did you maintain? Obviously that's going to tell you, is that a surplus? Is that my maintenance? Is that a deficit? So that's kind of how you can determine it. So from there, how to actually create the caloric deficit. So there's going to be a few things that we can do to actually create a caloric deficit. So the first, obviously, is going to be dropping your calories. I personally suggest, and what I do with my clients, is to start with a moderate deficit and then drop as needed whenever you stall. I like to let things kind of work for at least 2 weeks before I make any changes, and if it's still working, I'm not gonna make a change. But a moderate deficit, to me, what I use is 15 to 20%. So if you were at 2,000 calories, let's say, and we're going to do a 15% deficit from there, then that is going to be 1,700 calories to start for your fat loss phase. And that's gonna be a 15% deficit. And after that, I actually just make small drops, because with fat loss, we want to be sure that we are focusing on fat loss, not just weight loss, because if we're dropping our calories too low, losing weight too fast, all that, first of all, we're going to totally just slow down our metabolism way lower than it needs to be. Second of all, we might very possibly will lose some lean muscle tissue, which we don't want in a fat loss phase. So 15 to 20% is a really good starting place, I would say. And I would say and obviously this one's gonna depend on the person, how much weight they have to lose, but usually a 1/2 pound to 2 pounds a week is a decent rate of fat loss. Some people can get away with a little bit more, some people maybe even a little bit less. It's totally dependent on the person, but if you're dropping 6 pounds a week, you might want to look at how big your deficit is, because it's probably a little bit too big and you're probably suffering some muscle mass being lost there. So that's kind of what I would suggest as a starting point for your deficit from maintenance. And one thing to keep in mind is if you have been tracking your food and you're eating 1,200 calories, doing a bunch of cardio, and you're like, well, shoot, I'm not losing weight on this, so where do I go from there? That's whenever reverse diet would come into play, which I do want to do a full video on. But just for the general person who's not been restrictive or yo-yoing or anything, and you just want to get into a caloric deficit in the proper way, determine your maintenance first, go from there. If it turns out that your maintenance is super low and having to drop would mean that you're going to be starving and miserable, maybe look into a reverse diet. So now I just want to touch on a few ways that you can get into the deficit, or did I already start that? I don't know. But to continue, drop calories. That's going to be the first. Number 2 is going to be add cardio. So I think a lot of people think of cardio as like some separate magic thing, and it's really not. It's just a tool, just like food is. So adding cardio, you're going to burn more calories. So just like dropping food is going to pull from that calorie amount, so is adding cardio. It's still going to make your expenditure for the day. It's going to help you get into that caloric deficit, if that makes sense. It's a tool to do that, just as dropping your calories is. So we don't just want to throw in a ton of cardio at once. I like to just start with a couple sessions of like 15 to 20 minutes a week and increase as needed, just as I drop calories as needed. And honestly, I don't really like to do big changes to both in the same week, just because I don't like to make that big of changes in a fat loss phase, because I don't want to lose any lean muscle tissue if possible, or maintain it as much as we can. And if our metabolism is going to adapt and still make progress on less changes, like I would rather do that and be able to have more small changes and more progress rather than going straight to a ton of cardio. Your body adapts. Now where do you go? So cardio is going to be the next thing that you can add in. Whenever it comes to what kind should you do, all that stuff, that is honestly up to you. I mean, there are pros and cons to both, but in my opinion, I like to stick with mostly steady state, like incline walking, things like that, strictly because of recovery reasons. HIIT for me and what I've seen in a lot of my clients is it's just really hard to recover from, and it's really hard, like if you're already in a caloric deficit and you're wanting to focus on lifting intensely, which you should be, and then add on HIIT on that, it's just a lot for your body. So I personally like to use steady state, but obviously if you're short on time, things like that, or if you're still feeling good and the deficit isn't really too big yet, you know, you could do HIIT if you wanted. But either way, just remember that it's a tool. It's not, and you should keep track of it. You shouldn't just do cardio every day and an hour this day and blah, blah, like whatever you're feeling. Make it structured, make it a tool. So that's the second way that you can get yourself into a caloric deficit. And you guys should, I mean, I would suggest using kind of all of these ways. I probably use the least cardio. I just am not a big cardio fan. Like obviously it's good for heart health and stuff, but like I would so much rather utilize the gym, which is the one I'm going to talk about next, aka lifting, not just the gym. But the third way that you can increase your calorie burn for the day is by increasing your intensity in your lifts. I think so, like literally so many people utilize this tool and kind of forget about it, and they still just go through the motions of their workouts. But you guys, I can tell you, whenever I started pushing myself in the gym and truly focusing on my workouts and having intention with them, like I don't have to do like literally barely any cardio when I cut. Like at the end of my last cut, I was doing like 10 minutes of cardio twice a week because my workouts were so intense. Like I didn't need it. I was burning. Because with lifting, you're going to burn calories after the fact too, because your body has to recover, repair that muscle tissue. So if you are actually training super intensely and pushing yourself, like you're going to be burning more calories. And so with workout intensity, there's a few ways that you can kind of up your intensity. Number 1, follow a plan so that you are sure that you're progressive overloading and actually like progressing on certain lifts. I like to keep my workouts for about 6 weeks. That's kind of dependent on the person, but making sure also that you're recovering from them. But to up the intensity, use progressive overloading. Add 2.5 pounds to your push press the next week, or whatever movement it is. Add 10 pounds to your hip thrust the next week. Those kinds of things. Pushing yourself in weight and actually going freaking heavy, like more than what you think. Like if you're looking at the weight and you're like, that's probably gonna be hard, use that weight. Like you're there to push yourself, you're there to change your body. So that kind of stuff. And then also what you can do is decrease rest times. One thing that I have found in myself and in my clients is that whenever we actually focus on rest times, we see just a lot more progress in like fat loss phases overall, because we are getting our heart rate up in those moments, because obviously you're not resting as much. So that's a great intensity technique too. And there's tons of intensity techniques that you can implement, but really just pushing yourself in the gym and actually challenging yourself every single day is going to make a huge difference. And that can also contribute to burning more calories. And lastly, really just, I personally, so some people like to up their random daily activity to burn more calories, like step goals, things like that. And I think that's totally fine and great, but I personally don't do that. I like to keep that consistent, and then I'll adjust my food, my training around it, because I mean, like, I coach, and so like I kind of just sit down all day, and honestly, hitting 10,000 steps for me is so hard. I have to walk around my house like 20,000 times a day, so I just don't do that. But that is a way to increase your caloric expenditure if you're looking for more ways to get up, walk around, have a step goal, just move more even, because whenever you are in a deficit, your body's going to try to compensate. So it's going to tell you, no, I don't want to get up right now to go get that thing out of the car. You can do it later. It's literally going to make you more lazy. So doing things like that anyways is going to help also. So that's kind of 4 ways that you can help create that caloric deficit. And one thing that I did want to point out with this is to not add back your workouts. So just because you're creating a caloric deficit with your cardio, your workouts, that doesn't mean that you need to eat it back and try to like calculate it perfectly. Well, I burned this many calories in my workout, and so I only need this much of a deficit, so I'm gonna eat this much back. Don't do that. First of all, a lot of machines, watches are super inaccurate. Second of all, what you have to remember is you're gonna make changes based on how your body's responding. So if we're keeping things consistent, then it's not that big of a deal. If you're dropping weight too fast because maybe your workouts are super intense, or you're moving around more during the day, things like that, add some food if you're dropping weight too fast. I mean, just keep the workout thing consistent and don't add it back in. Just make adjustments as needed, because then whenever you actually stall, rather than having to be like, so do I need to like burn less calories in my workout or blah blah blah, you can just make adjustments to food and cardio. I never ever have clients add their workouts back in, so I just thought I would make that point. But so 4 ways to help you get into the caloric deficit: food, cardio, outside of the gym activity, and just intensity in the gym. So hopefully this was helpful. Let me know if anything was unclear, if you guys have any questions in the comments below. I tried to make it very simple. Obviously there's like a lot of science behind it all, but I kind of wanted this video to be more digestible to you guys, and just things that you could actually take away and start implementing. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Give this a thumbs up and subscribe below if you enjoyed it, and to support my channel. But yeah, that's gonna be it from me. Like I said, if anything was unclear, let me know. Sometimes I just like ramble, and I actually didn't make notes for this because I kind of just wanted to make it more simple terms than like super scientific terms and stuff. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys. I love y'all, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.